Hello, and welcome back to the Strong Collectors Podcast. Today, Jordan and I are going to be interviewing Todd McFarlane. This is going to be a two-part episode. So in part one, we're going to talk about Todd's collecting habits, some board games, Kickstarter ideas. We're going to talk about some of the criticisms and why he chooses Sculpt over some articulation. In part two, we're going to start right in with the Year 2 Batman and the issues that we've had with those arms. We're going to talk about an upcoming product that he's working on. He's going to bring out a prototype, which was super cool to see. And then we're going to get some updates on the Spawn movie. So if you enjoy, like, share, subscribe. Let's get into the podcast.
Big shots. We got big shots.
Yeah, exactly.
How are you doing today?
Sure. Always 5 minutes behind. So, what's your show called?
We are the Strong Collectors because,
okay.
We buy everything and anything at the expense of our wallets, but,
Every now and then I have to tell people, like, I appreciate all the support, but every now and then you need to take some of the people that are near and dear to your heart out for dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we like to say we're also the smart collectors because we
Yes.
do a little bit of selling as well. So, we do what we can. But
Yeah. No. The smartest collector I ever saw were the ones that never got married to anything. They go, I know this is hot, but I'm selling it while it's hot.
Yep.
And they're not thinking about like 10 years from now. They're just going, no, I can double my money in 2 weeks. That's good enough. And then I'll buy something else and double it. And I'll buy something else and double it and do whatever. Right. So and they never worried about the 20-year investment. They just went, right. It's sort of like the smart guy in college, which I had a buddy that was sold drugs, but he never took any himself. Right.
I may have sold or traded the Gunslinger Spawn when it first came out because it was a hot commodity. So,
right. But the thing is, with toys, collectibles, sports, anything, I don't care. There's always another one.
That's true.
Right? Every month we're talking about something new, and at some point you can just go, I'm going to be the month guy, the month trader, right? And I'm just going to go with whatever sort of hot. I used to trade cards. We used to go to because I had a card and comic shop too, and we used to go and find like whoever's the hot rookie card, right? And then we'd go and find and we'd buy like 100 of them, and then we go to the shows, and it was always sort of funny. I don't know if you guys have ever run into this, but if you got a lot of something that's hot, and then we'd have them for like $10, and then people will come up to us and they go, "What's wrong with it?" Nothing's wrong with it. Well, how come it's only $10? I'm like, because that's the price. Yeah. Well, that guy over there is selling it for 100. And that guy over there has got it for $90. What's wrong with yours? I'm going, well, there's two things. Well, number one, that guy over there has only got one of them. I got a fucking stack of them, right? So I'm trying to basically pass on a deal. And by the way, I bought them for less than $10 a pop.
Yeah.
So I'm doing good. Now, if it makes you feel emotionally better, you want to give me $90 for it? I'll take $90 if it makes you feel better. Like you're getting the same card. It's the same card at 80% off. Take the deal, right? Yeah. Like stop getting mad at me, right? But we used to have these conversations that it's like, how come you're giving it away? Because we're doing okay. We're having a good time. We're not as greedy as that guy over there, right? So maybe he's got more babies to feed than I do.
Something like that. So where are you at today, Todd? Are you?
I'm at home. I'm in home base, Phoenix, Arizona.
Phoenix. I was born in Phoenix.
What?
Yeah, I was. I lived there till I was 3, and then I came to Iowa. So.
Oh no, my wife and I are Canadian, so we eventually got down to the warm weather.
There you go. Very nice.
We made a couple Yankee babies. So.
Cool. Well, we do have some questions lined up. If you just want to, how do you want to segue to our?
I think we just keep rolling.
All right.
I mean, we're doing good. As
long as you need to do some kind of intro or anything. Or
no, we'll do the intro before and just kind of we can just kind of roll from here. And
Done.
I mean, unless anything you've said so far, you need redacted from the record. If you ever do say something, you slip up, you're like, oh, wasn't supposed to say that, but we can edit it out too.
I'm an old seasoned pro.
He knows.
You're a locked vault.
I don't say what I don't need to say.
All right,
perfect.
Cool.
Good to know.
Well, you kind of mentioned this a little bit, but we were curious on some of your collecting habits. So like, do you have every Spawn issue that you've ever written, or every comic book you've ever written, every toy you've made, other people's stuff? What do you like to collect?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a collector, but it's really sort of odd eclectic stuff. I mean, obviously, some old vintage comic books, got a handful of those, some sort of big, cool ones. I don't collect my own stuff, right? In hindsight, I should, because sometimes it goes up in price, and I'm like, man, I wish I had. I remember having like a whole big long box of like Spiderman 300s, and I was like,
oh man,
sell them for $2. I don't need these. In hindsight, I wish I had a couple.
Yeah.
Even my original artwork, right?
Mhm.
There are some pages I wish I could pull back, because I know I sold them for $600, $800 to now sell in the hundreds of thousands, right?
Mhm.
Oh man.
Yeah.
But somebody got a deal. But usually stuff that I collect is not sort of overly valuable. It just puts a smile on my face, right? I'm sure you guys have those, right?
Yes.
So I don't care if anybody gets it.
Mhm.
This reminds me when I was 8, right?
Yeah.
And it puts a smile on my face, and nobody even knows. So, but that's okay. I'm going to buy it anyway. So, and then I don't know if it's collecting. I buy a lot of board games.
Oh.
But I play them. So I don't know if it's because I play a lot of them, or because but my wife is like, why do you need so many damn board games, right? So, but I'm like, this is a small collection compared to other people.
What's a board game you're liking right now?
But then sometimes I bring them in. I'm going to show you. Hang on a second.
All right.
Yeah.
I brought one game in. I brought this one game in. It's called Freedom, the Underground Railroad. And it's about.
I think I may have heard of this one.
Yeah, it's about the theme of it is, can you get the slaves up to Canada and freedom, right? It seems like a sort of a weird concept, and it's really odd because when you get people to play it, and I brought it into the office, people get really nervous about it because every time one of the blocks goes away, it means they didn't save a slave, and they take it really personal. And so it messes with their strategy. But anyways, the way that game goes is if you play it, you move, and then the board moves on its own.
Okay.
It's got sort of an AI. So you move, board moves, you move, board moves.
Is it like cooperative then?
Or it can be. You can play 1, 2, 3, or 4. So you can. So, but people are just the opposite. Go, hey, you can play solo or whatever else. So I get them to play. Now again, you're not going to really beat a good board game. If good solo board games done right, you only beat 25% of the time. Because if you can beat it all the time, why are you playing it? Right? It's like beating up on your 5-year-old, son. Like there's no challenge. So, but you have to figure out now how to play the game and be skilled enough to be able to know what you're doing, even though there's a lot of randomness when you shuffle things, whatever else. So, but I get people here play it, and so if the board wins, I call it the cardboard god, right? So the cardboard god, because you're not really playing against anybody. It's which actually arguably the most infuriating part of it. When you lose, you were in the room by yourself, so you got nobody to blame but your own stupidity, right? So you always go, I'm going to play this again because you're so mad at yourself. But anyway, so I keep track now. I don't know if you guys can see, I had to update it the other day. The cardboard god is 34-0.
Wow.
It's won 34 times in a row. Now, I know when I post that on the Board Game Geek, they're like, Todd, you're playing it wrong. You shouldn't, it shouldn't win. But I'm like, I'm not playing it 34 times in a row.
Right.
That might have been 20 people playing it once, and some of them played it twice, whatever else. But it's not hard that none of them figured it out, right? But And it's really interesting when you tell them how to win, the smiles or the anger on their face, depending on at the end of the game, right? So it's weird how we can delude ourselves. So for example, and then we'll get back to another question. One of my employees went there and they go, I want to play that game because he plays a lot of board games. So he's like, I know how to play board game. And I'm like, okay. So I go, there's three things you need to do to win this game. Number one, you need to grab all these 3 tokens. You have to have all 3 tokens. That's one. Okay. 2, you have to get X number of slaves up to Canada, right? It's a fixed number or more. 2. And 3, you can't have this many slaves been captured. Those are the 3, right? Conditions. So he was playing, and then he got, as soon as you fill up the board of the captured slaves, and it's like game's over. So he got there, and it was game over. Game was over. He walked out, and he went, "Oh man, I almost won. If it wasn't for that one move, I would have won. I'm going to do it again, Todd. Tomorrow I'm going to try it again, or whatever." Now he walked away. I didn't really want to sort of injure his sort of ego at that point. But when he left, I turned to somebody and I went, how did he almost win? He didn't get all 3 of the tokens. He didn't even get to the number of people you have to get to Canada. And he got too many people. Like he literally was 0 for 3 of them. You have to get all 3 of them. I understand if he said I got 2 out of the 3 and then I lost.
Yeah.
He was 0 for 3. And somehow in his mind, he was like just
is close.
Almost this close. So I go, okay. So anyways, he thought he had a good time, even though he got smoked. Didn't know he got smoked by the cardboard god. But anyways, I play a bunch of them.
Have you ever thought, or have you done any like board game? I know
your question is, am I going to make a board game?
Yeah. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to go because I see it. I see. Like a couple years ago, we made our first Kickstarter, right? And so we came out. That was right at the pandemic, and that figure, that Spawn figure, as an action figure, set a record for the most sales for that category ever for Kickstarter, and the most dollars. And I think even the most individual accounts. Like it set a bunch of records for them. And yet I think we ended up just around $3.5 million, right? Which is a big number for one figure. Yet at that same time, there were 2 board games that were going, and one ended up at about 9 million, and the other one, based on this other popular game called Gloomhaven, they came out with Frosthaven. I think that one ended up at 15 million.
Wow.
Right? Like, and so you're going, wow. So as big as we thought we were, as many records as we were setting, multiply that by 5.
Right.
And that was board games. So Kickstarter is this sort of go-to place for board games. And having talked now to some of the big designers of board games, they're all like, hey, Tom, if you ever want to do one. So we've been getting more and more heavy because the category I play, war games aren't really, for the most part, especially historical, aren't really very popular in terms of the amount of games they sell. But if you get into the Star Wars and the Marvel and, sort of the fantasy stuff, those sell a lot, right? And a lot of them come, as you can imagine, with little miniatures, right? Where it has a little bit of like Warhammer-esque feel to it. And the reason why people play Dungeons and Dragons. So to me, it's like, I think I can almost have my cake and eat it too, do a little bit of a war game, which is sort of what I tell my writers on the Spawn comic books. It's just war. This is an ongoing war. But we make so many toys, we can just take our own prototypes, shrink them, and we'll have literally all the little miniatures all ready to go, right? Like, come on, I think we could do a game that would look cool, would feel badass, and the Spawn fans will like it, and then people who like fantasy would dig it because they'll see the quality of the little miniatures in it. So we'll get to it. That conversation's been heating up.
All right, very exciting. That's cool. So I guess getting back to talking a little bit about the transition, right? Starting working in comics, getting into toys. I guess what kind of led you to make that leap, or what made you want to start working and making toys?
Okay, so we started making the toys in 1994. So I don't even know if either one of you were even born, right? So,
Not yet.
so yeah.
Close.
So right. So what I'm going to tell you is you just got to take my word for it. But you know, if you go to eBay, you know what I'm saying is true.
Right.
There's a lot of junky toys that are out there. There's Superman and Batmans and Spidermans and all that, but they were pretty blandish. They were pretty juvenile, right? I mean, they were, you know, even the Star Wars stuff. It was, you know, it was what I call sandwich man stuff. It was like this, you know, maybe a little articulation on the shoulders, maybe the legs.
Four points of movement.
Yeah, well, and maybe if the head turned, maybe five. That was, but that was five was it, right? That was pretty standard. So you had a lack of articulation, and then you had, I thought, a lack of art. And so when Spawn comic book came out in '92, when we, you know, 7 of us formed Image Comics, and then we start moving forward, my comic book was Spawn, and the sales went up. The toy guys came after me, and I looked at their product and I couldn't see anything that they had that really inspired me. And then I talked to them, and they gave me their game plan, and I couldn't quite get excited about it. And I've said dozens of times before, what I was looking for was sort of a non-traditional toy sold in non-traditional places, right? Like, and they wanted to just make the same kind of figure they were always making, like G.I. Joe, and put it next to the same toys in the same places. And they weren't thinking about collectors or stores or anything else. It was just like, this is how we sell toys to seven-year-old kids and their mothers, which is really the toy business. And I just wasn't willing to give them my brand, even though it was brand new at that point, because I knew what would happen is that they would take it, they would try it. I thought it wouldn't work. And then they would say after a couple of years, Todd, it didn't work. We did it, we put it in our formula, it didn't work. And then they would hand me back my brand, but it would be damaged. So what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Go back now, do it my way after that, and go into the store and go, hey, remember that product that Mattel or Hasbro, or whoever else it was I talked to, brought it into your store and it didn't sell worth shit? You want some more? Like, you can't sell that, right? So I took the route and a healthy dose of self-confidence and ego, and just went, well, what does it take to make a toy, right? I mean, and oh, by the way, I don't understand why they can't be better. And so history now says that the answer is you could have made them cooler, right? Cooler, let's use cooler. Better is in the eye of the beholder.
Sure.
So, but you can make them cooler, I think. More detail, more paint, more articulation, you know, more interesting graphics on the packaging, just, you know, stuff that I was thinking about as from an artist's point of view. And I don't understand why toys can't be better. How hard is it to make toys? And I found people that had some experience in it, and away we were, right? We went to that first toy fair, caught a huge lucky break. And next thing you know, we were store wide at Toys R Us, and that was it. Once the first giant domino falls, it just pushes all the other ones, and we haven't looked back.
Nice. So I remember when I was younger seeing the I know you did some of like the horror figures and some of I've always been big into the horror stuff. My sister showed me Texas Chainsaw Massacre at a very young age, so for better or for worse. But oh, is that Freddy up there?
Yeah, this is the prototype.
Wow. They're very cool.
The movie Maniac from way back when.
Yeah, I remember seeing the movie Maniacs, and yeah, I always wanted those ones, but I think my mom thought they were too scary for me. But
there's another prototype that was from Little Nicky with the dog. Had the shooting. You put the arrow in there, and you pull the leg, and then he shoots out of his penis. That was Adam Sandler. That was the Adam Sandler movie.
Yeah. Is that? And I see a Terminator one up there. I remember seeing that one.
Oh yeah, Arnold. That's Arnold.
Well, that one you did the. I remember seeing the Terminator 3 one that had the coffin with all the weapons.
Yeah.
Where he just had like the bazooka and the machine gun and.
Oh. Yeah, I know, dude. We have watched it, right? Like, what are you talking about? Let me see if I can show you some cool ones.
Went on a tour.
If you're listening to the podcast, you're gonna have to join in on YouTube.
Yes, that's right. Oh,
that's awesome.
We were seeing in the glass case.
Yeah. Clown and Violator.
That's big. With my hand.
Yeah, that's a big Violator. That's a big clown too.
That's a big clown. Right there, over here.
Got Billy Kincaid strung up.
It all strung up. Shit, who doesn't like that? Miss Wanda, doing good. It's a Matrix prototype.
Oh yeah, I remember that one too.
Yeah, here he is doing that. You see it open up.
Nice.
I think I bought that one on OfferUp as the small version, of course, but I gave that to my roommate. It was a big Matrix fan. Man, that's cool. So,
there's Spawny. There's
Chucky and Naruto.
Yeah, and then this is from Twisted Land of Oz, the monkeys.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, we got stuff.
You got stuff. Well, that's interesting because we were kind of thinking about, I guess, a question of how toy making has sort of evolved, I guess, because you've been
got one of your early spawns that's kind of
yeah.
And then I've got more recent, and we're just kind of wondering about like how you chose the evolution of the sculpt and like the size and
so it was interesting because I think the learning curve of making toys for us went pretty fast, right? So that one that you have in your hand right there, even that one right there was winning awards because people were going, "Oh my gosh, Todd, look at how detailed that is." Look, like even that one was a step up, right? And that one falls into that same sort of 5 points of articulation. Maybe there's a waistband or something like that.
You got knee joints on him.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So. So I mean, it was a step up, and people were amazed at what we could do with that. And then within a year and a half, the finding out how much detail you could put in, how realistic you can make it, how you could paint it a certain way. All of that learning curve went really fast, so that we even did a 3-pack of spawns. I remember it was like sort of the beginning, and then like one that was 2 years and one that was 5 years, and it was like night and day. You wouldn't even assume it was the same company, right? But part of it was, I was hiring people that had been doing toys, and at some point we're all guilty of sort of falling back on what's comfortable and what we were trained at. And my instincts have always been, in any industry I've been in, to sort of keep asking questions of, well, why can't we try something else? Now, there's really only 2 valid reasons as why you can't do something. And it's usually time. You can't. We're never going to get done on time, and we got a schedule. Now, or the other one is just money. We don't have enough money to do it. We could do it, but it's going to take twice as much money, and they're not giving us the budget.
Sure.
So that drives almost everything, especially like in Hollywood and other projects. But every now and then you just ask questions, and given that it was my time and my money, because I started the company, I was like just asking the question, well, why can't we try this? And I wasn't really getting any real solid answers as why you couldn't, other than like, well, I don't know, because nobody's ever done it. Right, like, and you're just like, well, why don't we try it? I mean, what's the worst that happens? You try it, it doesn't look good. We can always go back, right? Like I was figuring that every artistic experiment is like changing your hair, right? Like, I don't care how you cut it. If you don't like it, if it's horrible at the end, it'll grow back.
Yeah.
You can go back to the other haircut that you used to have. So, well, but why don't we try? Right? Why are we doing the same thing that everybody else is doing? And oh, by the way, they've been doing it and they got a bigger name and a bigger reputation. We're not going to survive doing that. They've got bigger brands, right? They got Star Wars and Transformers and G.I. Joe and Marvel and DC. We don't. So we're going to have to just build a better mousetrap. That's all we got. So we're going to have to give them a better product, I'm hoping, at least artistically, and more plastic, charge at a really fair price, and just make it so that people can't say there's a value there, right? Yeah. And every now and then, if we can put a brand name on it, Freddy Krueger, Matrix, Superman, Batman, then that'll just make it even easier. But in the meantime, we've got to at least do the other stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And so plastic and pricing, right? You'd be surprised how far you can get, right? I mean, I've never done a big figure, a big, thick, like hulking like figure that never sold. Yeah. Because I think the average consumer says, twice as much plastic for the same price, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I got Violator back here and he's one of my favorites. It's huge, and at the price, it's well worth it.
Right. And I've got brothers, so why wouldn't you want a toy that you can bludgeon your brother with? Right?
If you needed a bludgeoning object, it's a good option.
Yeah, because we've made some, and all those toys, especially if they were the same price, would sell, right? The figures that are a little bit skinny and the female figures, not so much, because they're tiny, and you're going, what? I'm not even getting the same amount of plastic as just a normal guy, right? So. Yeah. So, plastic matters. So I don't care as long as you put twice as much plastic in the same package and it looks like it's busting out, people will acknowledge it. I don't even care if they even know what your brand is, what they're selling. They just go, that's a good value if I'm going to buy it for my kid.
So is that kind of why you added in, like with She Spawn, she came with tons of guns, weapons, axe, chain. Is that kind of what prompted the extra weapons and stuff with her?
Yeah, so you're right. So if you don't have a lot of plastic, you got to fill them up. Yeah. So, because again, you got to give them something. There's a value, there's a perceived value, and you have to give it to them. And like I said, if you're doing a big giant dude that looks like a big robot, easy. That's easy. That's just a figure. You don't even have to give them a weapon, and they still look cool. Although those guys, you try to put something on their back so they look even taller.
Yeah.
So
like Clown with the giant guns coming off his back.
Guy. Right.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I don't know if you guys are aware of like the artwork of like Appleseed, right? And so Appleseed are these cool sort of robot and armors, but they got all these cool pipes coming off them, right? And so they look twice as tall because they just have stuff on them, right? And so I don't know. I mean, I don't know, even like Braveheart. If you ever saw the movie, when he's coming in after they just killed his wife and he's coming in slowly with his hands out, right, on the horse, right? He's got that blade sticking out, right? And you just go, shoot, man, that blade, right? It's big, and he doesn't have to go back, he doesn't have to go on his hip.
Yeah.
You just grab it from up here. So even sticking stuff that just juts out even bigger once you get them out of the package, it just becomes volume. And it feels like your toy has a little bit more value instead of it not connecting to the back, and you got to put it in your drawer so you don't lose your accessories, right? Why not show them off and have it make the character feel big? Now, obviously you can't do that with all characters, but these are just the ongoing things we're doing. And remember, we started with Spawn and we did 35 series of Spawn, and we were just making it up on the fly. Right? Yeah. Viking Spawn, Dark Ages Spawn, right? All of this stuff, just crazy Samurai Spawn. We're just making crazy stuff up. So let's just have fun and see what people react to and go from there.
Yes. Oh, so going from plastic in the package to paper in the package, you've got the page punchers coming out.
Yep.
I guess how much say do you have in which comics? I imagine that the 7-inch scale is probably promoting the Black Adam movie. Yeah. But I guess future lines, if there's going to be future lines, do you think those will still all be the same comic, or kind of going along with the smaller scale figures where they're kind of the like showcase issues?
So that's it. So there's a couple of different ways we're talking about it. And it's all sort of time and effort and sales, depending what's going on. We're doing some where, again, it's a unique comic book you can't get anyplace else, right? So there's a bit of a drive. But again, if you're doing 5 characters, then ideally it'd be cool if you could do 5 new comic books. But if you can't do 5 new comic books, then can you do, like you're saying, maybe the origin of them, or some story that's relevant about that character in the package, and maybe do a unique, even though it might be a story that had come out 20 years ago, and put a unique cover that nobody's ever seen on it. So at least you're not just, it's not a complete 100% sort of reprint, but somebody who might not be familiar with the character, once they read that one issue, go, oh, okay, I feel like I now know what this toy character is all about.
Sure.
So we're navigating through all that, because you can imagine trying to do comic books, because I have a comic book division too. Doing comic books as a backup or in conjunction with toys on an ongoing new basis is not as easy as it may sound.
Well, it kind of adds another timeline to deal with too, right? That was Dakota's pitch for
I was gonna say, if you want to, I don't know if you've thought of this already. If you haven't, I'll accept royalties if you want to give them. But if you do a page puncher for Spawn, and each one is kind of like its own mini series that you can't get anywhere other than getting the action figures, you got to collect all the action figures to collect all the issues to get the whole story.
So I don't have to give you royalties because we've thought about it already.
Dang it.
But the Spawn's an interesting one, because if DC wants to give me a unique comic book I can sell and promote, like, cool, right? I'm in, right? I'll do it. But as somebody who's also president of Image Comics, and we deal with and have been, we're celebrating our 30th anniversary this year.
That's right.
Of Image Comics and Spawn, because they both came out in the same year.
Yeah.
The retailers have been good to us for 3 decades, right? And I don't know if the way this is, I get these weird things in my head. Maybe they're not so weird, but I just like, I don't know, if somebody's been supportive for 30 years, it's tough for me to say that the way to reward them is to say, hey, and guess what? You made me so popular, I'm going to do a comic book and you can't get it, neener, right? I don't know. It doesn't seem like the way to keep them on your side.
Yeah, you don't want to force a collection to, if you want to read the
buy
book,
ones
you
you
have
don't
to buy
really want.
everything. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't want their customers going outside their store to go get a book that they in 30 years have been getting in their store because they've been supporting me.
Sure.
And again, if you just did one here and one there, maybe they wouldn't care too much. But it's just, I don't know. Like I said, I've got these sort of weird things in my head going. I mean, my comic books are only $2.99.
Right.
One of the few comic books. Matter of fact, I think the only comic books that on an ongoing monthly basis that are $2.99. And not only that, but I upgraded the covers recently. So the covers are way more impressive, so that if you want to go get them graded, they're not going to get sort of all bent up.
Yeah.
And I've had people come up to me, even retailers, say, Todd, why don't you go to $3.99? Or like, because all the Marvel DC are $3.99, some are $4.99, some are $5.99.
Right.
For 20 pages. And I'm $2.99.
For that new number one.
but I don't know. The retailers are going like, Todd, I'm going to sell the exact same amount, right? And then I'd make an extra buck on each one. Yeah. So I understand from the retailer's point of view, but then you have to ask the next question, because it's now not just us and the retailer, there's the end consumer, right? And so, okay, I can do it and you can do it, retailer, but why are we charging the customer now an extra buck? Because they've been loyal to that title. So the way to applaud them is to raise the price. I don't know. I can't do it to them either, right? So why not just keep it at $2.99? I don't need the money. So why don't we just make it as reasonable as we can to the consumer? And oh, by the way, I think that it matters. I think that if you don't come across as grabbing money all the time, and you're not gouging and you're being fair-minded about your pricing, I think people will give you the benefit of doubt, and you have a chance, fingers crossed, that they might support you a little bit longer, So you'll make the money up in longevity instead of worrying about like getting the price now, right? And from a marketing point of view, and I don't care whether it's toys or anything else, the biggest value you can have is sort of your reputation and your brand. And if you start to diminish any of that, then yeah, I guess you can make a lot of money in 5 years, but why wouldn't you want to make a little bit of money for 25 years? Because at the end of the day, it will add up. If you're counting money, it'll add up more, right? At the end of it. So where people are always looking for the big strikes, like do a big, like, so I did we talked about the Kickstarter, made 3.5 million. I could have put another one out that quick and taken people's money, but I didn't want, I went, no, I want it to come out. I knew at some point that we were starting to have the shipping delays because the world was going into its pandemic mode. And I didn't want to offer another one until everybody had gotten it in their hand, was
like that
able
idea.
to simulate it, know whether it was of value to them or not, and then come out with the second one. And now they have data on their side, right? And if they said, oh my God, that was super cool, I'm buying another one, then it's based on real data that they have it in their hand. And if they don't like it, it also was based because they got to see it. Where if I was trying to sell them the second one before they got the first one, then they were going to be having to make a decision and either going, no, I'm just going to buy it because, I like all things Spawn, but there was a chance they could have got disappointed twice.
Yeah.
There's a chance they could have got excited twice. I'm more patient and saying, well, why don't we put it in everybody's hand and then ask the second time around, and then put that one in people's hand and then ask a third one and let people decide whether they want it or not, right? Instead of just making money for the sake of making money. Here's the thing about money making, which is sort of an odd one, is like, I'm not, we've had a lot of success. I've had a lot. I won't apologize for any of it. So anybody wants to say whatever it is I'm doing, I'm like, whatever, do. But I honestly don't chase the money. The money, when I have conversations with people, I go, money is the least important and the least interesting topic, right? I don't care about it. And given that I have that attitude, guess what? I've got a fucking shitload of money, right? So for a guy who doesn't care about it, I've got a lot of it. Now, why do I have a lot of it when I don't care about it? And the reason is, I think it's because of the other stuff at the other end. Give people quality, be fair-minded, price it into them, give them good customer service, do whatever, and just be fair-minded overall. And somehow they'll just give you a nickel and a nickel, and and eventually it adds up to dollars. Don't worry about getting the dollar. And so I've told people this before too. I'd rather have 1 million people give me $1 on a product than to have 10 people give me 100,000. Same amount of cash. Each one adds up to 1 million. But the value of the first one is that you have 1 million people that know about your product. Yeah. Why do you want 10 know about your product instead of 1 million? Between those two, which one do you think long term is going to basically spread the word more? 10 people or 1 million people? I mean, this is easy math, right? Yeah. And so I see way too many times people go for small, big scores, and then they wonder why 5 years later they're not able to basically replicate it. And it's like, because you sort of got your big, you ran your business like it was a sprint. I'm running mine like it's a marathon. I plan on this being a long play, right? So I don't know. People tell me all the time, oh my God, Todd, I went to Vegas and I won this hand. I won $500. And it was like awesome. You should have seen it. And I don't ever care about it. I only ask them one question. I only have one question for you. I don't give a shit. You won $500. Here's my question. When you went home, did you go home with more money than you came with? That's all I care about. Because you can talk to me all day long that you won $500 on one hand. My next question is, did you leave after that? Because if you gave it all back, right, then you want, like, at the end of the day, you got nothing. I don't know. So it's like playing poker and saying that you won a big hand, although you played 100 hands, you won big. So I don't care about the one hand. did you come with $20 and did you leave with more than $20? That was either a good night or a bad night. I don't care what happened in between, right? So, but in business is like that. People just go for the score, and then people, I think, are aware they're being taken advantage of. And then when the people come back and try to sell more, they're like, nah, you know, I got a bit of a bad taste in my mouth, right? I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy who's just taking money because I can, right? I want to do it for a bigger reason than that. Just other than you can make money.
Yeah, it seems like kind of asking yourself that question of, would I buy that or would I support that myself? You know, and kind of, I guess, as a segue there.
No. But let me show that. I think what you just said is as succinct and as simple as the equation is for me. That everything I do, I say, would the 16-year-old Todd have wanted to do? Would the 16-year-old Todd who had no money, would he have bought this? And I bet you 85% of my decision making starts with that sentence. So yeah, would I buy it for myself if I was 22 and didn't have that much money? Depends. How much it costs and what am I getting for it?
Right. So yeah, kind of in that vein, thinking about I guess like feedback, like, because we're involved in a lot of different toy groups online, and you know, we hear the chatter and things. How much do you, I guess, as far as like deciding the figures that are made, right? So let's say DC Multiverse, is it more like, hey, could you make these figures? Or is it kind of like, hey, I have these ideas for these guys I want to do, or maybe a mix of both?
Yeah, sometimes we'll take the pulse of the fans, but I mean, you guys know, if you're involved, the toughest thing about having a lot of fans is that then you have a lot of opinions and a lot of personalities and a lot of likes, right?
Yep.
So you can imagine when we were doing sports, the people who lived in Buffalo wanted Buffalo figures, and the people who lived in LA wanted sports figures from the people in LA. And so everybody sort of has their favorite, and some people go, well, I want, you know, I'd like them to be bigger. And somebody else like, I don't want to be bigger. I want more articulation. And somebody's like, I don't care about articulation. I just want the design, or I want a sound chip in it, or I just want this character. And if you really like a brand, then you're willing to spend money going like 6, 7 characters deep in it, where the average person only really wants sometimes the first 1 or 2 characters in that brand, and you can sell them all day long. So I understand if you're a Batman fan, you know, you want at some point, maybe you want, you know, the Penguin. But the average person who's not, especially if you're a mom, you know, they're going to go buy Batman and maybe Robin for their kid, right? That's like Batman, Robin. I mean, so even Joker's of no value to a mom, right? Like, that's not Batman, right? My kid wants Batman. He said Batman, right? Moms are very myopic, let me also say, right? Hey, Mom, can you give me one of the Batman toys? And I think the kid is actually way more like flexible in what that means, right?
The Batman universe, not just Batman.
Like, I'll take like any Batman toy, because I just saw the Batman movie. There's lots of cool Batman stuff. But Mom only heard blah, 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 Batman toy, right? So I've seen it. I've seen the moms at the store and they go, do you have any Batman toys? And the guy goes in the back and he brings out like the Joker or whatever it is. And she's like, that's not Batman. It's like a big book. It's like, no, but it's a Batman toy. That's not Batman. My son said Batman, right? So I don't know what they do when somebody said, can you get me a Star Wars toy? Because I guess that one's a little more generic. Sure. But if somebody says, hey, can you go get me a toy from Shrek? Right? I think they'd be happy with like a donkey.
Yeah.
Like, Mom just hears Shrek, right? So moms are really like, no, do you know where I can go? Can you go in the back room? Do you have any Shrek? So fans can be a little bit like that in that they have their love affairs and they have what works for them and they have what's there, and you can't really sort of appease all of it. So what you try and do is, are you starting to hear certain things over and over? Right? Is there a brand that you're hearing a lot? Is there something about the toy that you can sort of do better or worse or add to, or a weapon or something they want, you can put in there? Is in that brand, is there one character that they're hearing about or something? So you try and pick something that you think might hit the 4 corners of this country. instead of just, those 15 people that were vocal in a, chat room, right? Because at the end of the day, you still have to make product that will sell in any state, at any store in any one of those states. And so for me, those decisions are fairly easy, and probably the exact same decisions you guys would make. One, go get strong brands, right? Those always help. Of the strong brands, then make the more popular characters, for sure, at the beginning of them. And then if you don't have a strong brand, then whatever you're making that's better look really good, right? So they might not know my monster, they might not know my robot or my superhero, but it better look good. And so even if I'm doing like for DC Multiverse, do I think most people walking up and down the aisle know what, let's say, Mr. Miracle looks like? No, I do not. But done right, can Mr. Miracle look good in the package? Yes. Right? One of the first toys we put out, matter of fact, in our very first line, was we did two toys. One that I call Superman in Armor, and the other one Batman in Armor. They had fancier names than that, but that's what I called them internally.
Here. Oh, yeah, there he's got him there.
Superman. Right. So that guy was essentially Superman in Armor.
And Batman.
Right. And again, the wings come out, both of them came with wings, and they got way bigger than that.
They're so big, I didn't put the wings on them, so they fit on the shelf better.
But in the package, like both of those guys were butted up side by side in the package. Yeah. Right. And so I remember when I was talking to Warner Brothers, and they were like, "Why? Like, I don't understand why you want to make them." And I'm like, "Because you're good looking toys, right? Like at some point, we have to acknowledge we're making toys also, right? And everybody who buys toys does not necessarily read the comic books."
That is me in a nutshell. I've never read a book with either of these, but they look awesome, and they're on my shelf.
Well, I am a comic guy, and neither did I. So the Superman in Armor guy, that if you lift him up, had been in a total of 2 pages. No. That was, I'm sorry, that was the Batman one. That was the Batman guy, been in 2 pages. Batman. The Superman was the one you're holding up, was in 2 panels. That means 2 pictures on 1 page. He was only in 2 pictures on 1 page. He didn't even, it wasn't like he had his own book. It wasn't like he was famous. So again, it was like, why do you want to do something that literally nobody knows exists? And you know why? Hold it up. Because it looked fucking cool.
That's true.
That simple guy, like I don't know how many times I have this conversation with executives, that it's like you forget that you were 8 years old at some point. Yeah. Right? That in a box with the Superman branding on it. Yep. I'll sell it all day long. Why? Because it's got Superman. It's a lot of plastic bursting out of it. It looks like a robot. So if they like Transformers, then they got a Transformer sort of version of it. And it's the same price, has all the humanoids that are in there. And so they're getting more plastic. So you're just like, so if I'm 8 years old, my mom said, "Todd, you can only have like 1 Superman. I'm taking the big dude." Yep. Right?
Well, Dakota and I always have that debate where Dakota, he'll grab one that just looks cool. And I've started doing that as well, where I was always reading which one was it that I got on recently? The Martian Manhunter. Yeah. We saw that gold label and I said, that looks cool. So I do think that that definitely applies.
Yeah, no, you can buy what you like, but again, never underestimate cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Never be and cool, I think, comes in generically sort of the same forms that I liked. I don't think a 5, 7, 8-year-old, 10-year-old kid is any different than I was. Monsters, aliens, dinosaurs, robots, superhero, and maybe a little bit of cool military stuff with a big cool gun, badass stuff, right? Like, I think those are kind of universal themes, right? As long as you keep regurgitating them. So can I do an alien Superman, a robot Superman, a superhero Superman? The answer is yes, 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 yes. Right?
Yeah.
As long as you're doing them and they look cool. So
yeah,
that was it. So and here's the fun thing: those two figures you got in front of you in that first line were my two best sellers.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah. So when I got to go back, I was like, hey, remember we were talking about why would we do this? Well, not only did it work, but like people were buying it more than anything else, because I think, the Superman and Batman that came out at that point were fairly classic looking, and the Spin Master was also doing sort of the classic look. And it's like, what are you talking about? Between what I'm doing with Spin Master doing, those Superman and Batmans look about the same. Yeah. And if you go on eBay and you put Superman Batman, this look, you could have bought it 100 different ways for the last 50 years, right? But that guy in the robot, that form factor doesn't exist.
Right.
So if I'm collecting Superman, I go, I've already got the generic. I don't have that, right?
Yeah.
I don't have that one. So I'm a Superman fan. I'm taking that one. I'm taking that one home. And it's true for, I would argue, almost any brand.
For sure. So yeah, the next, sticking with kind of cool in the figures, and I'm curious on how you choose the sculpt and the articulation with them, which, spoiler alert, this is going to kind of lead into somewhat of a grievance section. But I'm curious. So like, I'll just take Haunt here for example. Cool looking figure, but I'm curious because as you're designing these, I love the articulation where he can reach back so far, but I'm curious why he doesn't crunch forward as far as he goes back, and like how do you decide which figures are going to move in what ways?
Yeah, sometimes it's a limitation of the size of the body, right? And so especially for a lot of the stuff you're talking about, like the crunching and the turning of it. I mean, you've seen the ones where it's like what they call a tongue and groove chest, right?
Yeah.
It's like this and it just bends.
Right.
Lots of motion in that, and it's really kind of cool. Looks ugly as hell to me.
Okay.
Right? So for me, there's still an aesthetic part of it that I just don't. Sometimes I just go, man, I'd rather almost not do the articulation because it's going to look kind of ugly. But sometimes I do it just to sort of see whether people care. I mean, especially if you've got like Superman, Batman, they've got their emblem here, so you can cut them. You can cut them here.
Sure.
And you're not going to do it. But take somebody like Spawn who's got the continuing stripes.
Right.
As soon as you now spin this, the stripes are broken.
Sure.
And you're like, oh, darn it, right? It doesn't look nearly as cool. So what's more valuable? Is it to have the look be accurate at all times, or is it to be able to have as much sort of posability and fun with it as possible? The answer is, again, going back to what we talked about earlier, dependent on the individual. Sure. And everybody does something a little bit different with their figures, so that, because the movie Maniacs and stuff like that, there wasn't a lot of articulation. The sports figures wasn't a lot of articulation. Then what ends up happening is the money you save because you're not doing a lot of articulation, you can put it into the paint job. Okay. And then you got these killer paint jobs.
Yeah.
You put in a ton of articulation, and we try to do that with, starting with Fortnite and then carrying over into the DC multiverse. You start getting into where do you want to spend your money, right? Especially because I've got to keep it at like $20 for Target, Walmart. And so you go, okay, well, people seem to be clamoring for articulation. We'll try and give them as much as we can. And then we make individual decisions within that, but we're going to lean towards articulation more than painting. And then over time, and I'm starting to see it more now, that people are now saying, hey, we'll take a little bit less articulation, could you add a little bit more paint, right? And so they're, and why? Because they now started collecting some of the old stuff, and the old stuff has these unbelievable paint jobs, because you didn't have to worry whether you were crossing sort of open joints and having two different people in the paint not matching and all these other pieces that were there, or even if you got the paint, they're not going like that, and they've got an open sort of black sort of wrist that is like, well, that doesn't match. So people sort of, the pendulum keeps swinging, right? It's like, no, we like poses. We're like, hey, they never move. And then it's like, now how am I going to do a TikTok video? I can't do it. And then it's like over here and it's like, yeah, but I don't want to do a TikTok video. I want to do cool photography. So how come you can't put more paint? And you're constantly sort of swinging and trying to sort of see if you're, hopefully on a good day, that you're accommodating the majority, right? Which can be 51% or above. It's never 95%. You're never lucky to get that close to it. So.
Sure. So it is part of the reason for the articulation. I've got the gold label Catwoman here.
Yeah.
With the ball joint ankle.
Yeah.
Is that intentionally, like, so you can pose in more ways, or that's the heart behind
it. I think sometimes people don't even know how to use those, because they turn here and then they turn here. And the reason is, man, I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to show you this. Shoot. I'm gonna put it down on the floor.
That's all right. I'm going down.
Okay, we're going down on my floor.
You're now on the floor.
Okay. So here's my foot right here, right? Mm-hmm. But the wider your feet go, don't take my word for it, use your own anatomy. The wider your foot goes, right? Your foot, this is still going to be flat, right? This is going to start to angle right here. Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. So I got to be able to go here, right? So now I need to be able to have, not only the foot has to be able to move wherever I want on the floor, it also has to be able to go from straight to sideways, not front and back, right? It has to be able to go sideways if I'm doing a big sort of extravagant pose. So what ends up happening on those ball joints, and this is where maybe I should do a tutorial, is that you literally have to grab that ball and turn it really hard and then get it, and then you can do these really cool kung fu poses that look kind of sort of realistic.
I honestly noticed that right as I was getting ready to ask that question. So maybe you do need to put a little pamphlet that says this is how to use the ball. No,
like the ankle is, because here's the thing, is that if they put it in wrong at the factory and it's tight, and because I want them to be tight, because I don't want these things to be loose.
Yeah.
And it's in there and it's tight, then sometimes people go, the ankle is broke a bit. It's like, no, it's not. You just got to turn, like a customer service, you just got to turn it. But maybe I need to do a video to just go, guys, I don't think you're getting the full value out of some parts on the body, because once you know you can put them way spread eagle, then that gives you another sort of handful of poses that you maybe would look cool. Again, doesn't fit everybody's personality of the figures. I think Catwoman would take advantage of that pose. If you did somebody like Shang-Chi or something like that, maybe even Spiderman and or Haunt, I don't know that it's overly needed for somebody like the Hulk, who's not going to go into these big sort of spread eagle, dramatic, sort of down on one knee.
Get pretty wide.
Yeah, but that hero drop that you see in the Marvel movies where they go down and
the hero landing.
Yeah, the hero landing. Right. You sort of need that ankle for that side foot that's out to the side. You need that ankle that we try to give there.
Yeah.
I'm going to disappear for 1 second. I got to plug in, because otherwise my computer's going to go dead on you in about 2 seconds.
All right. Definitely. Sounds good.
I'm going out of frame.
All right.
Out of frame. I'll put in the dog in here. Over there.
All right. To see the spring-loaded penis dog.
That was one of the coolest toys we ever had.
Yeah, there can't be too many spring-loaded penis dog toys out in existence.
No,
I wasn't even aware there were any. But
little Nicky, go look for it.
Thank you for listening to part 1 of the Strong Collectors podcast, where we're interviewing Todd McFarlane. So if you enjoyed this, make sure you stick around for part 2. Like I said at the beginning, we're going to jump right into part 2 with the Year 2 Batman, the issues that we've had there with the arms breaking. We're going to get a new figure prototype reveal, and then we're going to talk about the Spawn movie. So remember, if you enjoyed this podcast, like, share, subscribe, do all those things, post us in the groups, let other people know about the interview. Hopefully you learned something here. Remember, as always, stay strong.